The temperature is rising, gases are being released, we are becoming a wasteland, the environment is under threat by global warming. How can we make a difference around the home and out in the community? There are some things we need our energy for, but how much more are we consuming? Leaving electrical items on standby takes up 1% of energy use. Switching off all appliances after use can save 1 million tons of carbon from being pumped into the atmosphere. We can also save energy if we hang our clothes out to dry rather than use the tumble dryer, and switch off every light before we go to bed. As we produce 3% more waste in our house each year, our natural resources get used faster than ever. 80% of the rubbish we create can be recycled. That can save our materials. Recycling paper can reduce pressure on our natural resources and save 30 to 70% energy than producing paper from virgin materials. Just one can of Coke being recycled can save enough energy to power a TV for 3 hours. Transport is responsible for 25% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions. The average person drives their car 5,433 miles per year. The average car will produce approximately 3.3 tons of carbon dioxide a year. Public transport uses less than half the fuel per passenger than driving on the road. If we all started to use public transport, walk or cycle for such a short journey, traffic congestion would quickly reduce. Coming to the airport for a flight produces 5% of our carbon emissions. If we use rail for a local break, it would only create 1/8 of a flight's carbon emissions. A return flight from London to New York releases the same amount of carbon dioxide as driving a family car for 4 months. Ice caps are melting, sea levels are rising, climate change is upon us. So how will it affect us?
It's likely that we have to change the way we live. There are certain problems that we will encounter that we don't at the moment. For example, we'll be prone to more flooding. There will be more wind. There will be hotter, drier summers. So we'll have to adapt our lifestyles to cope with that.
Anywhere where there's an extreme climate already, and is likely to have extremes of weather such as droughts or flooding, climate change is likely to make those more extreme.
Here in the UK, we've got I suppose you could deem as a temperate climate. When we look for the changes climate change could bring us, we would potentially look at higher temperatures towards the south and east of the UK, so places like East Anglia, the southeast of England, perhaps the Midlands as well, nearer to continental Europe essentially, could see higher temperatures during the year as a whole, but especially during the summer. And again, perhaps those heatwave conditions that we saw a few years ago could become more frequent.
We would have more war, that we might have an economic collapse because it's hard to grow food. We might have to rely much more on our local area for the things we need to live.
This is a climate model at Exeter's Hadley Centre. They can forecast our weather and predict the future of climate change.
These two projections we've got here that you can see together, A1FI emissions, that's basically the kind of scenario we're looking at as a worst case story basically, where we continue to use greenhouse gases on and contribute global warming on the scale that we are at the moment, and continue indeed to accelerate using fossil fuels.
They re-emit in every direction, so some of it travels back to Earth. So overall you get a net heating effect of the planet caused by these molecules. So they're basically our massive increase in the amount of carbon dioxide produced is overall having a net heating effect on the Earth.
Devon County Council has got to be thinking about what's the situation going to be in 20, 30 or 40 years' time in terms of climate and therefore tourism. Are we going to have the water supplies to sustain that large numbers of visitors? If Devon's climate becomes more Mediterranean, as it will do this century, and that means less people will be travelling to the Mediterranean.
A lot of communities living on the coast will actually disappear. There are certain islands, for example, in the Pacific, which will disappear because some of them are no more than a metre or a metre and a half above sea level. So those communities will completely disappear. So if you do live on the coast, it's likely that in the long term there will be effects on the communities which will actually destroy the communities, so people will have to move inland.
Because although we can individually reduce emissions by using less heating at home and being careful with our resources and switching things off and recycling and so on, the biggest changes are going to come from political decisions. So it's really important to have a political atmosphere where governments and councils and businesses know that everybody wants them to reduce emissions and to change the way we produce power and the way that we think about economic growth.
You can really see how in particular the continents, places like Africa, the land really does warm up quite considerably, and at the end they were looking at temperatures increasing perhaps as much as 8 to 10 degrees Celsius as an average mean temperature, so quite a noticeable difference there. And oceans not quite so evident because sea temperatures react differently to being heated from the sun. Not such an evident rise there, but still quite a noticeable difference.
And people can really get involved with their imaginations. We take people on a journey to a world where really crazy, chaotic things are happening and where fantastical things are happening, and it really helps people to get involved imaginatively in the issue and think about it as a whole world, you know. And in terms of the workshop, you know, you involve people physically, it really helps their imagination to get involved too.
My primary function really is to help teachers see how they can approach the teaching of climate change in a stimulating and exciting way that fits well with the national curriculum.
Well, it's the main message of our theatre project is to let people know that they have the power to make a difference, and that it's, you know, it's not too late to really change your lifestyle in small ways and in big ways that can really make a positive impact on emissions and how the world is going to turn out in the future for our children and our children's children.
In my own lifestyle, I found there are some steps that are easy and some steps that are very difficult. So one of the things that was quite easy was when we moved into this house, we decided to use wood burners and to plant trees, which we hope are going to provide us with enough wood for those. It was also quite easy to switch our electricity to a renewable supplier and to have solar panels installed on the roof. So right now we use no electricity to heat our water. It's all heated to about 55 degrees by the sun.
The model is keeping those temperatures below that observed line, and the reason for that is it hasn't had the man-made influence built into that particular model. And that's why we look at this monitor here, because if we add on the extra emissions of CO2, for example, that man has put into the atmosphere, you can see the correlation between the brown line and that green hatched area underneath is very, very close. It's strikingly close. So it indicates that if there is any increase, if there has been an increase, we can ascertain it is down to a man-made influence that's the effect of the man-made influence on the model simulation. Take that away, and you'd get those oscillations well below what has been observed.
All we need is for governments, industry and individuals to just try and to move into the right direction, to try and make that change a reality. It's totally possible. It just needs everyone to just be very conscious and aware of what is possible.
Global warming is near. We could be living underwater. To save the world, we need to cut down on our emissions.